this work session for the Lane County Board of Commissioners to order. It's a joint session with the Fair Board, and I'll turn it to Jack to call the Fair Board to order.
I'd like to call the Fair Board meeting to order.
And with that, I will do a quick round of introductions just to make sure everybody knows each other, and maybe the viewing audience might get to know who's here. I am Jay Bozovich, the West Lane County Commissioner and current chair.
Sid Likens, Springfield Commissioner and current Vice Chair.
Pete Sorensen, Lane County Commissioner, South Eugene District.
Rachel Evans, Marketing Manager and Assistant Fair Manager for the event center.
Corey Miller, Fair Manager.
Renee Spear, Fair Board.
Sasha Cosio, Fair Board.
Sid Voorhees, Honorary Fair Board.
Randy Twain, Fair Board.
Jack Harris, Fair Board.
Greg Rickoff, Chief Operating Officer for the county.
Pat Farr, Faragor.
And Gary Williams, East Lane Commissioner and Fair Board Liaison.
Yeah.
And do you want to introduce yourself?
I am Mike Penwell, Capital Projects Manager.
Who the Fair Board should get to know well. I'll turn it over to Corey then.
Yeah, before we get started, I do have one little item to take care of, and that is, unfortunately, we do have one of our Fair Board member who's terming out as of December 31st, but we are very appreciative of her time and diversity of thought that she has brought to us, and so we wanted to give a little memento with a plaque here, well, actually a picture of the fair that's also signed, and Fair Board will sign it afterwards. So, but we had staff sign
it.
This is for you. Thank you very much.
Very nice fan of white.
I love it. It's perfect. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so with that, we'll start working on our annual report. But before I can even begin with that, I got to throw a couple of thank yous out, obviously to the Fair Board for their time and effort, but specifically the fair staff. Without them, our fair does not happen, especially at the level that it does. We've got coordinators and volunteers and partners. And it goes all the way through the county system with Public Works and Finance and HR. Everybody touches it at some level. And I couldn't even begin to name all those people, so I will not, because I don't want to leave anybody out. But with that said, again this year we tried to provide entertainment option for the community. The mission from the Fair Board has been to entertain and educate fair visitors, celebrating our community's traditions, talents, diversity, agricultural and urban heritages. We support that by producing a fun, family-friendly, safe event geared towards residents from all demographics of Lane County and beyond. We've had multiple years now, actually 5 years of increasing our net revenues. Unfortunately, this year that number did not increase, but we still had a very profitable and positive fair. So we're happy about that. We're looking for some potential opportunities to work toward increasing that in the future. We've identified some things. That's one of the things that the Fair Board will be working on as we head into the spring, is some opportunities to grow those numbers again, but very proud of what we did put together. Something to keep in mind, this is the first year that we have kept track of all staff time throughout the year through the time card system. So one of the items that came up a couple of years ago in this venue was that staff time working on the fair outside of the fair wasn't being completely recorded. So this year, those bottom line numbers do include all staff time being coded to the fair throughout the year. So when we go back, for instance, today, Rachel and my time will be coded to fair. So every opportunity that staff is now working on fair is being coded to fair. So that is part of what has driven that bottom line a little bit. We estimated what that impact would be, excuse me, but we never know exactly how much time people are spending on fair until we actually start seeing that. So we'll be tracking that as we move forward. So with that getting started, I'm going to turn it over to go through the fair report to the much more eloquent Rachel Bivens, who not only helps generate this report, but actually touches pretty much every facet of our fair. So she's very involved in almost every area that we have out there, and much more in tune with it. So
So much pressure. So I hope you've all had a chance to review the report. I'm gonna kind of breeze through, just rather than reading it word for word, kind of talk about the graphs. If you have any questions, please just stop me. I do have a tendency just to kind of keep talking, because I get excited about it, and that's just how I talk sometimes, so please interrupt me. I want to start with a discussion of our admission and attendance. Overall, we were a bit down this year. There's a number of factors that we, as a group, attribute to that. Some of it is weather-based. Being an outdoor event in Oregon, it is something we always have to take into account. Sunday was pretty hot this year for us. We've had about 4 years in a row of 80, 82, which is the perfect temperature for us, because on the blacktop, that comes up to about 87, 88. Sunday was super hot, and we did see a very significant decrease, on that day. Of course, there's always lots of other factors, but it is something we look at in our kind of grand equation of sales that day and how the attendance runs and everything. If you'll take a look at our graph, you'll notice that the gate was slightly down, not bad, only about 2,000, and that is tickets purchased at the gate, people coming in right there. Our paid attendance was down just by about 2,500. So that accounts for concert ticket or admissions purchased with concert tickets, all these other pieces of puzzle, the pre-sale, season passes, the group sales, etc. The one area we did have a nice increase in was group sales. We saw an increase of 300 tickets. We are seeing in the community that some of the organizations that used to buy 800 to 1,000 tickets that had dropped over the past few years down to 200 or 300 are coming back to us. So that's nice, and we'll be working on that program again this year to try to increase it as well. The season passes has, as you can see, been kind of a hit and miss in terms of our numbers. Over the last 5 years, we'd like to get that back up to where it was at one point, which is more in the 2,000 range. So that's something we're going to be taking a look at this year. We're looking at new ticketing companies that can give us the ability to sell those tickets online. There's a complexity with the scanning issue and punching and things like that that we're still trying to work through. So that's kind of our attendance in a quick nutshell. Overall, the 5-year average, we're kind of right on par with the 5-year average, but we were sad to see it go down a little bit this year. So we'll be working towards looking through all those factors for 2019. The parking, this is the 3rd year in a row in which we've worked with the Mounted Sheriff's Posse and Search and Rescue. And last year it was identified that there were some issues with their cash handling procedure, ticket handling procedure. So we worked with them this year to fold them into our system. So we gave them tickets and they worked through our cash room. I think overall an improvement. We see areas where we could build on that again for next year. And in looking at the electronic ticketing and expanding that out beyond where we have it right now, we think we may be able to capture a better sense of what's happening out there using that system. So that's something that we're working towards for 2019. Revenue from that the parking is a 50-50 split. It was down slightly this year. Some of it can be attributed to part of that lot being going to the city. Some of it could be attributed to people staying at the fair longer. So when we see a slight decrease, we don't panic because we feel like, okay, that means the turnover of cars was probably a little less. So we kind of take that one with a grain of salt, just knowing that there's only a finite space we can fit them in, and we have to work around that.
We identified the Jefferson Park area, for those that remember the old Jefferson Pool there, and that park there sticks out into the parking lot there a little bit. So there was a little bit of conflict because that's City of Eugene property, and so we had to designate what was city property versus what was county property. The city actually permits their own property to the posse with a separate agreement, so that was kind of why we had that little division out there.
Any questions on either of those? So in the vendor section, we have a variety of different types of vendors. We start with our food and alcohol vendors. Each year we have about 30 to 35 food vendors. It depends on the infrastructure, the returning vendors. Our food vendors are very loyal to us, and they have a lot of loyal fans as well. So we don't have a very great turnover. We did add 3 new ones this year, which was pretty exciting. One of which is donuts. Donuts, for some reason, is like the one thing people ask for every year. I think it goes back to way back when there were mini donuts at the fair. And so we have a donut vendor now. It seemed to go over very well, I will say. We added Magui Grill, which is Hispanic-themed food, had some aqua frescas and a few new items that we did not have. And then we added a gourmet grilled cheese. It was a current vendor that we already had that had a couple of other trucks, so they ended up having 3 trucks, which filled out kind of a corner that had become empty in a really nice way. So increased the flow, increased the variety. Sales this year were fairly close to where they were decreased from last year, but we increased the percentage. So the way that we get our revenue from our food vendors is a percentage on their gross sales. It has been 22% since 2006. In doing market research, we established that we were actually one of the lower fares in the county and in the state, being one of the bigger county fairs in the state, we felt like we should be up in the percentage that matched those. So we went from 22 to 24%. And while that doesn't seem like much, it actually took the revenue up to where it was last year, even though we had a $40,000 decrease in sales. So on a year where we're on par, you can see that we would have quite a bit more income coming in. The other piece of the puzzle is our alcohol service, which is provided by Oregon Beverage Services, who is our year-round partner in providing alcohol. We work with them every year to try to establish the best points of sale. They have kind of a theory of the way that they do it, but we like to make sure it fits in with the flow of the fair, the appearance of the fair, the vibe. So one of the things we added this year with them, which is another big beer tent, we call it the Bar in the Square. We noticed that our tap house last year was overwhelmed with people. It had about 17 to 25 taps, depending on kind of the time of day and what was happening. And it was just an overwhelming success, but the lines were way too long for our satisfaction. So we added another tent the same size and added a Bar in the Square that served from all 4 sides, just to kind of get a different vibe, so it didn't look just like the tap house, and to add kind of, add another point of sale, basically. So huge success on their part. We're looking at ways that we can even streamline that next year to improve the service again. We do offer hard alcohol as an option now, and they're looking at possibly integrating that into this specific tent as well. Right now, it's only served at the Build Your Own Bar, which is Bloody Marys and some other stuff that I can't remember. But they're right up on the convention center lawn. We are currently partnered with one of our local distilleries to service that bar, and we'd like to kind of expand their presence for them. We also added the Oregon Lottery Lounge this year, which was really small. The lottery is someone who's been our partner over the years, gone away, struggled to get them back. They're trying to expand back into all the counties around the state. So they had a very small presence this year, and we put a small bar in there, and we're already working towards trying to make that a little bit more interesting, and see if we can't get some sponsorship dollars out of that. So everybody cross your fingers for me on that one. If you look at the next page, you can see our alcohol and food gross. So the 5-year average for food is $575,994. So we're just slightly down from the 5-year average, down $40K from 2018 in total, as I indicated. But again, the percentage received by us was almost exactly the same due to that increase. The alcohol, the average has been, you can see kind of an upward trend there. The major shift between 2016 and 2017 was a new provider. So that's our Oregon Beverage Services right there. You can see that large jump. And we were just about where we were last year. Another thing that we like to do is compare our daily food alcohol sales with our attendance. What was the concert? Watch the trends. That's how we decide kind of what kinds of music to go after. So if you take a look at that bottom graph, you can see kind of the numbers as we go through the week. Wednesday was Trace Adkins. That was the concert. Thursday's concert was Melissa Etheridge. Friday's concert was Night Ranger. Saturday we tried comedy for the first time, and that was Bill Engvall. And Sunday was High Valley. So we take a look at this not kind of just in this 1 year capsule. We look at them all together when we're looking at what kind of genres we're going to book for the next year, and see, obviously the ancillary revenues make a big difference to us, so that's something we take pretty seriously. All right, on page 6 is a discussion about our commercial vendors. So that is anything from informational booths, nonprofits, some somebody selling sunglasses, to umbrellas, to clothing, so it's a little bit of everything. We were down 2 vendors this year overall, and a little bit of revenue. That one does change just slightly based on our outdoor layout, and the outdoor layout changes based on what the grounds entertainment is that we book. So it kind of fluctuates a little bit. Additionally, we have a route and save with one of our partner fairs, which is Jackson County Fair. We're hoping to actually build that into a 3-fair run as we move forward, to entice vendors to come in and book 3 fairs with us. They get a slight discount with each one of the fairs. Helps them, helps us, so that's kind of what we're working towards. The 5-year average on our vendor revenue is $90,446 and 92 vendors. So 2018 was 99 vendors and $99,000. There was something else new about commercial vendors for 2019 that's escaped my brain. Maybe it'll come back to me in a little bit.
Just on the vendors.
Yeah.
I've had a couple people mention that it just doesn't seem like we have the vendors we used to have at the fair. Yeah, I know that's the 5-year average, but if you look further back, do we have a lot more vendors, say 10 or 15 years ago?
So we, the vendors used to be in the exhibit hall, which is the
Right.
larger of our 2 halls. So I started actually at the event center in 2004 and was selling the commercial vendors. At that time, we had more larger vendors. So you had people coming in taking a 20 by 30 or a 40 by 40 inside and outside. So I think it's a combination of the loss of those type of vendors. Those vendors were typically mattress vendors, hot tub
tubs.
vendors.
Hot tubs,
Yeah, we had 3 hot tub vendors.
I remember that.
But they've all gone to the home shows. There's 3 home shows. And so I
Wow.
think they're feeling like the demographic isn't the match for them. We try each year. So we, after a number of years of struggling to fill the exhibit hall, and having some conversation about how our creative exhibits were doing and where we were putting them, and the fact they were kind of all discombobulated around the grounds, opted to move the vendors into a hall where we could fill it, and make sure that we were sold out every year. Over the past few years, we've come very close to selling out. I've watched it go up and down in terms of where people want to be. They either want, it seems to go in sort of 3 or 4 year increments. They all want to be inside, they all want to be outside. So this year we sold out outside. That was the trend last year and the year before. So last year we tried to add additional space outside. We'll try again this year depending on our layout. So I think we've been very solid for the last 5-6 years, but I do think there is, I offhand couldn't tell you how many vendors we had at that time, but I do think the impact of the loss of those large ones.
And that is the main difference. The large ones that were taking up the extra space did rotate into the home shows. As those home shows have gained popularity, we did lose those.
Okay, thanks.
Main stage concerts. So this year, actually last year we added a VIP tent for the first time. We had static seating, reserve seats, and then it was completely open along the back. Over the years, we've tried different formulas. We've tried blocking the area so people can't see. We've tried opening it all the way up and not doing reserve seats. We've tried just a few seats. So last year, Corey and I have identified that the trend over the past few years is that people are not buying tickets anymore for those reserve seats because they can all see it for free. So in an effort to encourage the seat buying and to also add a new element to the fair, we added a VIP tent last year. Sold out for all 5 of the shows, 4. We had a company picnic one night. And so this year we opted to add a second one. So what it did was it created a much more intimate venue at the main stage. It has blocked off a significant amount of that free standing room only space. It does exist still at the back, and we've pushed some of it forward to bring that audience closer. But the goal here is to sell out the limited number of seats that we do have. The expense of the concerts is fairly significant. We can in no way make it back by selling those seats, but in doing this and selling the seats and VIP tents that we do have, we can at least get closer. So this year we added an additional VIP tent on the south side and called that one the Silver. So we had gold tent that had all the features plus food, and then the silver tent had all the features and just table snacks. What we found, interestingly enough, was that the gold tent, which was the most expensive price point, sold out for every show, and the silver did not. So moving forward, we're just gonna do 2 of the more expensive, because it seemed to work. And in looking at the ROI on what the cost is for the tent and the equipment and the food, we actually come out ahead, and so, we just started working through that, with the shows that we are working on for this year, and I think it's gonna come out great. I know that we didn't have a lot of complaints about the viewing area, which was our main concern, was that in adding that second tent, whether or not we would get a lot of people unhappy that they couldn't see it, and we really, I would say maybe 5,
Very few.
yeah.
You know, I'll add a little bit of a marketing element to that. What we discovered at Jerry's through the years is if you don't have this one, you don't sell this one. So be wary of that. If you don't have the silver, you might not sell the gold.
Everybody cross your fingers then. Yeah.
You know, the marketing executive did better and best. And people
Yeah.
buy the best.
Well, it sounds to me
It's
like
true.
it's time to go to platinum.
That purple. You want
Sorry, good.
to be a facilitator, Jerry?
So interestingly enough, this year, we sold approximately 150 less tickets overall, but because the artists were higher caliber this year, we could charge more. So this is kind of the pickle that we get in every year, is that depending on the artists we're able to confirm, that determines the price point that we're able to sell the tickets, and that determines the overall revenue. And there's really no way for us to predict that until we actually secure our artists. So, that worked out really well. We're happy about that. I think the extra VIP tent and increase of price there did also help. So I think as we move forward, even with the flux in artists, we'll be able to maybe get more even, but as we look at our numbers and the ticket price points, there's no real way to kind of level that out. Because you wouldn't charge the same for Melissa Etheridge as you would
Yeah. Do you
for
think the
High
fair
Valley.
concert venues, though, without the country music festivals, we've lost 2 of them for next year? Is that going to change the?
It is a topic of discussion not only with us and within our meetings with the Fair Board, also with our meetings with staff, as well as the meetings that we've had recently with other fairs and other fair managers. So yes, that is an item that we're kind of all kind of anxiously watching to see how that plays out and how the public reacts to that opportunities.
And
So
how
we
it
think there's some opportunities for country music to have a better foothold in the fair scene, which it hasn't because of those large festivals. So we're kind of anxiously watching to see how.
Also nice to get Bimart back as a sponsor.
Yeah, right.
That's, there are 2 places that could have impact. You know,
Right.
the sponsorships that moved over to those country music festivals, and also just with one having better acts availability.
It changes the whole market as to what level of buying is going on nearby as it changes the price points.
And the way that we route is we actually route with Jackson County, which is where we call it Sixes, where the one from Cape Blanco moved to. And so our ability to route with them is much better now because their fair was only 2 weeks apart
Yep.
from that festival, which made it almost impossible for us to get some of the people that we were after because, one, Bimart usually snuck in and took them first. But 2, if they were at the festival, then Jackson County couldn't get them, and if Jackson County couldn't get them, then we couldn't get them. So we're hoping there's a domino
And we
effect
need the
out there.
routing option to bring the price down, so our buyer guarantees multiple stops for an artist, which brings the price down. Without those multiple stops, the price is high, and these large festivals are willing to pay full price, in fact, sometimes over full price, ahead of time, which then pushes us out of the market, so.
Interesting.
So to go back to the concert ticket revenue, as I mentioned, you can see since 2014, it's gone up and down. 2015, you can see that was a year where we had a lot of challenges in terms of booking our artists. So the ones we did get did not warrant a high ticket price. So unfortunately, you can see that we took a big hit in the revenue. Overall, still, the 5-year average is 107,000 and some change. So I think we're getting closer. One of the things we have identified is due to the decrease in standing room only viewing area, it appears that our overall concert attendance was down. We're not quite sure if that's actually true, or if people are just wandering around into the fair. So that's something that this year, having the second year of having our eyes on this actual floor plan, we'll be able to evaluate a little bit better and see how that goes. And again, hopefully, now that people have seen that this is what the venue is gonna look like, they'll know that if they really wanna see that artist, they need to buy the ticket. So it's usually a 3-year cycle of kind of how these things play out and training the attendees as to the changes and where they're going. So we don't want to make any dramatic changes this year by getting rid of one of those tents. So we're going to let it ride for another year or two and see if the audience does join us in that. Grounds entertainment. So every year we strive to provide grounds entertainment that attracts ages of all ages, families of all sizes. So this year we feel like we had a nice balance. We brought the freestyle motocross back for another year. It was a different group than in 2017, but it was a group that we worked with many years ago, so they were thrilled to come back. They matched the price point, and these guys could do bigger tricks. So bigger tricks equals bigger excitement in our mind. So we're happy to have them back. They
You guys
do
are
take.
insane.
Yes, they
Every
are.
time I see them, I just go, you guys are nuts.
Yes. Well, and the interesting challenge for us is the wind. There's kind of a wind that hits in mid-afternoon that's significant enough that these guys go, nope, we're not getting on those bikes. So we always have to kind of rearrange the schedule to try to accommodate for that. We also let them make the determination if they need to push them later into the evening. We used to have them actually where the main stage was a number of years ago, and so they were running north-south, and that really didn't work because the wind is east-west. So we've rotated them, and now they run east-west. Still problematic, so we just kind of, we work with them, but they're great. They love entertaining the audience, and yeah, they do stuff that really seems to defy logic and gravity.
Yeah,
and all
being
of the
able to,
above.
definitely a logic. 50 feet in the air over asphalt and let go of your motorcycle completely, and do stuff and then grab hold of it and land is like, yeah, I just, yeah.
It's a very popular attraction.
Yes, yeah.
We also bring in a number of fan favorites every year, which is the racing pigs and the fritter critters, which are those big fuzzy guys that walk around with the crazy hair. People love them, so we bring them back every year. They're great with kids. I don't know if any of you have ever seen them, but I can't tell you the number of times I've watched them take their giantness and get it down on the ground with a small child who looks terrified of them. And by the end of that interchange, the kid is smiling, they're walking around holding hands. So, we take that into consideration every year when we see these entertainers and try to consider what we want for the next year is what's the audience reaction gonna be? Who are we talking to? Those guys, obviously, they've sort of become our mascots, so I don't know if they'll ever not come back. We love them, so.
The racing pigs are pretty popular too.
Yes, yes. And so all Alaskan Racing Pigs, I don't know if you know, but they are owned by Bart Knoll, who has been a member of our community for a long time. And so he still lives here with his family, and then they just travel from here to do these shows. So it's nice to have that very local connection. And they always say that our fair is their favorite fair, so.
Yeah, I think KZI or somebody did a story on them last year. It was a really nice feature.
Yep. And providing uniqueness at our fair, that you don't see at other fairs. I grew up in Tacoma County. You know what we have? The pig and Ford races.
But those are actually,
Don't get any ideas.
I know.
All right. We also have our community stage, which is an area where we invite local groups, local bands. It could be anything from dancers to taekwondo to acting groups to small choir groups. So they all come in and they perform. It's a free space for them. We do have some logistical issues as the bands come in because trying to get all their equipment in from the gate to that stage is a challenge. So we're working towards either moving the stage or figuring out kind of how to do that or changing its purpose and making it more for just groups. So it would be more school groups, more dance groups, more theater groups. I think one year we had National Academy of Gymnastics, which was an interesting challenge on a small space, but they made it work, so we'll see. We also have our senior celebration, which is held on Thursday each year of the fair. And for the last few years, we've partnered with AARP, and they have done a wonderful job. They have asked the vendors to step up and do more. This year, they asked each one of them to have activities at their booth. They've been bringing in larger entertainment, so it's a wonderful partnership for us, and it allows someone who has the time to dedicate just to that to be able to do that, because it was, the person who was doing it was one of our exhibit staff, and at that time of year, they're just bonkers because the amount of paperwork that's in that, so that was the right choice for us, and we hope they'll come back for 2019.
But the biggest draw of all, of course, is watching Commissioner Bozevich serve ice cream.
Yes,
That is true.
agreed, absolutely.
That is true.
Yes, and get carpal tunnel from all that scooping, we know.
Well, if they just warm the ice cream up just a little.
It always seems to come in frozen rock hard.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Next time, we should ask them just to leave it outside for a few minutes, it'll be fine.
Yeah, just a couple minutes outside the door.
Yeah.
I've actually had the kids doing a lot of this scooping and serving lately, so I've just mostly been directing people at the front door.
Yeah, those kids and those organizations that help have been very, very positive for us.
Yeah, the two partnerships outside of the AARP is the Martin Luther King Education Center and Lane County Youth Services, and then Larson's Fine Candies. And so, all great. They come in with staff and volunteers and kids.
And the kids are help, clearing out the tables and whatnot. It's just a great opportunity.
One of the kind of bummers that did happen this year is that the organization that produces the STEM Festival, which is STEM of Lane County, forgive me, there's another name for them, and it's left my brain at the moment, but they did not feel like they had the time to dedicate to it. We feel like if we're going to do this, it needs to be put on by the experts, the people who work in STEM every day and know what that means and who the partners are and where that outreach goes in this community. So kind of the two of us agreed that we would not do that for 2018. We'll talk to them again for 2019 in the hopes that they have staff to dedicate to it. It works well sometimes. It's kind of not worked well for us over the last couple of years, which I think is part of the reason they opted not to do it. So we'll keep working on
Was
that.
that through the ESD?
It's been a combination of partners. It's been
Yeah.
ESD and U of O, and then I think ESD actually hired a person solely to work on STEM. And so that was the person we worked with in 2017. I'm not sure that she's there any longer.
Well, we, not y'all, but, the fair board, we could, and the elected officials could help paint the benefits of STEM being there, because it really is a tremendous outreach for them, opportunity for people to really understand what it is, and
Yeah.
what we're trying to do there. And if you have the STEAM.
Yes.
Then, yeah.
And we'd love to have them back. I mean, it was always a wonderful thing. They always want us to do it just for a single day, which is totally fine with us. We can make that work around other things. But I think the logistics of it was a challenge for them.
People love to see what kids
Yeah.
I
are doing,
agree,
the
yeah, I
innovative
agree.
things that kids are doing and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, we would love to move forward with that. And if we can get them to come back and we've got the space, we'll make it work.
No to me.
Another large source of revenue for us is obviously the carnival. This is 2018 was the second year on the new contract. I don't know if you remember from last year, but the contract included an increase in the percentage that they were paying us on both the first $500,000 in revenue as well as after that. Overall, carnival sales increased this year by just about 1%. The percentage to us decreased just slightly, I think, because of the way that the sales fell in terms of, we had a major increase in our pre-sale. And so those come in at a lower ticket price. The pre-sales for the pay one price bracelets that are $50 on site or $37.50 leading into. So we've kind of been looking at those numbers and working with them. The benefit of the pre-sale to us, while there is a lower price point, is that is all money in the bank ahead of time. So we really, it's kind of our rainy day fund. We look at it that way. And it's also decreases the lines on site, which makes patrons happier. So lots of benefits to that pre-sale, even though the price point is different. It does also include partnerships outside of, because if we can find a brick and mortar place to do the sales, then that usually involves a sponsorship. So it's a win-win kind of all the way around. This year, First Tech was the sponsor again for the second year in a row. They actually opted to add an additional discount on top of and then make up the difference in revenue because they wanted to try to get people in even earlier. They said it worked okay, but people still come at the last minute. So something we're always looking at is how can we ask people to buy things earlier?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to work. We try, and we do things here and there, and you'll see a little blip, and then it seems like most people wait until the last minute anyway, but we'll keep working on
But
it.
you know, once again, painting the benefit to people, not waiting in line. I mean, you're looking at the master of keeping people out of lines, and that's Sid Voorhees. If you watch his auctions, auctions at the end of the day, at the end of the night, can be a horrible experience. Not the way Sid runs them, because the lines, there are no lines. So really. And you look at wherever you go, that is the biggest deterrent in not going places.
Yes.
That's why we formed a single line checkout at Jerry's, because, people hate waiting in the wrong line. So I love to hear you saying advanced sales decrease lines. Well, that's one of the things that we need to do. The old line for Fur Crest Fryers at the fair where you had to wait. Remember that, Greg? You had to wait for like 3 hours for a half a chicken.
Yeah.
Oh, that chicken was so good.
That chicken was good.
Pete? Yeah.
One of the things that I think is a big selling point of the Lane County Fair is that families that are thinking about how they're going to spend their summer vacation dollars, one of the least expensive options for them is to have that vacation during a 4-day period in the summer. And I think one of the, as I hear the economics of, hey, we'd like to sell as much as we can up front, I think that part of that could be in the marketing of ways to spend your summer vacation and how inexpensive it is to spend your summer vacation right here. And if you get people planning for that period of time earlier, now they may not be as plan oriented as we'd like them to be, but if we get them thinking about going to the coast a month earlier or a month later, and we get higher end people thinking about going to Yellowstone earlier or later, or higher end people yet going to Disney World. So it seems to me that part of that early is to continually remind people, or maybe there's a marketing component to that, besides mere reminders, that say, hey, plan your vacation now. This is a great deal. And even put the price point, week at Disneyland, $18,000. Week at Lane County Fair, $5,000, no, $2,000, $500, whatever it is,
Yeah.
And that way, people will see that by staying home and having their little fair staycation, perhaps marketing people could improve on some of these analogies, is, really it's a big benefit financially to them to see the kind of talent that we bring in, the kind of excitement and just the whole cultural experience and fun. And it's much cheaper than other types of vacations.
Yeah.
And I think with the research that we did several years ago about the decline of fares, that actually a lot of what people want in terms of vacations are right there.
Yeah.
So,
We'll take a look at that, but I see your point. It's funny that you say the cost of the fair, because that's one of the biggest complaints that we get. We haven't raised the prices on admission, in 10 years?
In probably 10 years, and we're still lower than even smaller fairs like Jackson County and some of these other fairs. We're still lower than them. And yet that still just seems to be one of those things that people key in on, is that the price, at least to them, appears too high. But for $9 for an adult for all day doesn't seem very high to me. Considering the amount of free entertainment we have out there. Sure, you can spend a lot of money if you want to, but you don't have to. We have free entertainment. We've got other options and things to see that are out there.
Price marketing is a big issue. And you look at the big lie that retailers sell that we have the lowest prices in town. We have the big lie going on about us that we are high price. We're not. So a little bit of emphasis once again on the part of the people who are out in front of the public that this is the best deal in town.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
want the best deal in town, this is.
You can spend $9 on a movie ticket for 2 hours.
Yes.
Right.
Sitting in the dark.
Yeah.
And we are working with our
1.5
marketing
Yeah.
company on some of these ideas already, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is the best deal in town.
Yeah, it's $9 for all day walking around, bringing in animals, seeing all the entertainment, without spending a dime. You could be there for almost, half a day without spending a
For
dime.
every age, I mean,
Yeah.
kids. and-
Yep. Yep.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, speaking of animals, so our exhibits department, which consists of our creative areas and our livestock areas, we had a really solid year. There were some areas that were up, particularly in creatives, and some areas that were down. That kind of happens each year. This year we did add a flyer for all of our coordinators that they could take out to various schools. They could take to clubs that are associated. Something like textiles particularly has a club. We did note the textile coordinator did very clearly let us know that there were 4 other textile fairs on the same weekend this year. So, so that was. And there's only 2 clubs, so I'm not sure how they all split their time, but we're gonna work on that for next year. But we were really happy with the way it laid out. We have some exciting kind of changes for this coming year. We have 2 staff members that are gonna be doing our exhibits department. So up to this point, we've had 1 fair and event coordinator. She's managed all creative and livestock exhibits at the same time, in addition to sort of being the go-between with our 4-H and FFA partners. It's been a lot for one person to handle. So we have added a 3rd event coordinator, and she will actually be titled the event and fair coordinator and manage the creative areas. So that'll allow each one of them to give a little bit more time and headspace, and I think at the fair will allow them a little bit more breathing room and not quite so much running. And we've also shifted to a point where 4-H and FFA will be a standalone. And I say that only in the sense that our staff will not be involved in their areas other than here's the space and what equipment do you need, et cetera, rather than going back and forth with the youth fair and the auction, which has over the years been a little bit confusing. So some of you may remember when 4-H went away a number of years ago, the Lane County Fair took on that role and added the youth fair, and we were finding that the 2 programs don't work side by side. They were actually competing. So rather than competing, we've opted to eliminate the youth fair and encourage all those kids to go over to 4-H and FFA. If they don't want to participate, there are still categories in which they can participate in the fair. In the open show, it's just a little bit different. There are no belt buckles or there are ribbons, but it's just slightly different in terms of the back end and what kind of prize they get.
Yeah. I will say this is probably the one place I have my greatest concerns for next year. And it's the unfortunate thing that you guys have no control over the extension services employment practices. But the current 4-H coordinator is causing a huge schism with their volunteers. And we may not see a 4-H fair next year if it continues. I have great concerns over that.
And we have some backup plans in place internally that if for some reason things don't go as they envisioned them, that we will continue to have an opportunity in the Lane County Fair for the youth that live in this county at some level, so.
Yeah. I mean, they denied volunteer certification to a couple longtime volunteers recently that have passed law enforcement background checks recently. So it's just,
I'm delighted that you are aware of all that.
it is just incredibly, I'm flabbergasted that they don't see what's happening here in Lane County and haven't done something about the 4-H coordinator.
Well, all the supporting entities that work with us during the fair are prepared to make sure that things still can have that opportunity going forward if in fact something happens. The good news is FFA is an entity that is coming back. It's gathering some local steam as well. It's another opportunity for the youth locally, so.
And Renee, I think I remember when you came on the board, that was one of your big emphases, wasn't it? Bringing
Yes,
4-H
I was
back
the,
and driving 4-H.
with the youth fair, I was the beef superintendent. I'm also the beef superintendent for 4-H. I'm going to continue this year as beef superintendent, so Yes, I'm on the front lines.
Yeah.
But it will be a very interesting year.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can get some movement out of OSU soon. We'll see.
Just, I was gonna say something about the offensive line, but never mind. They moved back pretty quickly.
Yeah, although they did have a great running back. Commissioner Like.
So real quick, a comment on 4-H and FFA. So that's good to hear, especially on FFA. When I grew up in Douglas County, and I was part of 4-H there. And FFA and 4-H is still a significant.
Yeah.
It's a big, huge part of Douglas County and has been for a long time. And I will tell you, when you get a little older in FFA, it gets very expensive to take your dually and trailer down to Douglas County and load. Stay down there for a few days, load back up, and bring it back.
Right.
And so it's good to hear on the FFA side in particular. It was interesting when we were looking at the updated census. If you look at percentage-wise, the fastest growing area in Lane County is actually rural Lane County on a percentage perspective. So, I'm glad to hear that. And because, again, if this doesn't occur, Douglas County is more than happy to receive anybody within a very large region.
Right.
And they have the facilities to do it.
Right,
I mean,
sure.
their facilities
That's
are still
Right.
very significant, so good to hear.
Yeah, while we do have some logistics impacts with the facilities and how much space we have, it continues to be one of the most popular areas of our
Yeah.
fair, is the exhibits, and particularly the animals. It's just a natural.
Yeah, I can guarantee that whenever I go to the ice cream social, I usually try and get a couple pictures up on social media to try and entice people to come down. And either the Alaskan racing pigs or some baby animal will be the absolute most popular picture I post,
The sheer number of people that walk by the baby pigs
Oh, the baby
is just,
Yeah,
you can't
yeah,
even
yeah.
fathom.
There were baby goats or something one
Oh, yeah.
year.
Tiny pygmy goats?
Tiny
Yeah,
pygmy
yeah,
goats.
tiny pygmy
Oh.
goats, those were very popular too. But I'm really glad that FFA is coming back because, the ag industry is big in this state and in this county, and there is a real issue with the aging out of the labor force in the ag industry. And getting kids interested in the ag industry is an economic issue for us. And it's an alternative to, the folks that are going to end up with a college degree or something like that to go directly into ag. So kind of that FFA really kind of gets kids interested in ag in general. So you wouldn't think of the fair as a piece of economic development necessarily in some ways, but that's you think about STEM, you think about some of the exhibiting that goes on by youth and all that stuff. It is actually somewhat of a leading edge to career training and career paths for a lot of kids.
Okay, the last section of the report is about our sponsors and partners. This year was an interesting year. I lost two of my major sponsors very early on. Thankfully, one of the things I always do when I lose a sponsor is the first thing I say is, why? I mean, much more politely, but I do.
Why the heck?
Yeah, right. So the good news is that this was in no way related to the fair. Chevy was one of our sponsors for the main stage, and they have opted nationally to shift the way that they were marketing. So they were no longer doing events and intercepts, which was the primary reason to be at the fair. So while that was a huge bummer, you can't really argue with that. And the other was Serpro, and they identified that in all the events that they were doing in Lane County, that they weren't reaching the right demographic. Their demographic is actually insurance businesses versus patrons versus attendees. So again, unhappy to lose them, but it wasn't just me, it was all the events that they were participating in, they backed out of. So, that's the kind of reason that if I'm gonna get one, I'm okay with. But we did get some new sponsors this year, which was pretty exciting. Eugene Networks, which is a local IT company, joined on as a day sponsor. Aflac Insurance, the local agent, joined. Providence Health Plans is trying to increase their presence in this community, so they joined and are already back for next year as Eugene Networks. And then Tractor Supply Co. kind of came out of nowhere right before their store opened in Crestwell and wanted to be at the fair, which was very exciting. I'm hoping they'll come back to us for 2019, but they're out of Tennessee, so sometimes it's a little more challenging to get back and forth with them in terms of where they are and what they're doing. So dollar value wise, we were down just slightly from last year. One of our other large partners came back and increased their sponsorship, so that helped also with the offset of the loss of those two other ones. And the in-kind, the one thing I would like to point out is that the in-kind does look like there's a very significant increase. Something that I identified in working with our new marketing and ad agency this year was that the bonus that was traded out was largely overstated by the previous agency. And so unfortunately, that looks like a very significant drop, but the value that we received was actually equal to or greater than the year before. It just wasn't being overstated, so. So additionally, a couple of our partners, which are, Food for Lane County and Lane Blood Center, now Bloodworks Northwest, we partnered with them again this year. The canned food drive on Sunday, we received about 20,000 pounds of food for them, so a little below the average because of that significant decrease in attendance on that day, but they were still very happy with that. And Pint for a Pass, which is the blood drive. As long as you register to donate for blood within the appropriate time period, you get a pass to the fair for any day of your choosing. They were up by about 2,000 registrants this year, so they had gone through a significant decrease kind of due to their shift from LBC to Bloodworks. This year we seem to hit it right on the head, so we'll be working towards getting that for them again this year. They're already on board, and that 3,236 registrants resulted in a possibility of 9,708 lives saved. So really awesome and very exciting for them.
Those are huge numbers.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's about an 8-week time period that we do it with them.
May I ask one question?
Sure.
You mentioned Providence is becoming more and more involved, and as a county, we have health in all policies is one of the driving issues for us, and you guys adhere to that, obviously. But Providence, there's competition among healthcare providers, healthy competition.
Right.
But if Providence is upping their ante, then it's almost certain that
Right.
the other
Right.
healthcare providers would be interested in that.
That's a good point,
And I'm
yeah.
talking about Peace Health, I'm talking about the Kaiser, Pacific Source potentially, and certainly our CCO Trillium, which I know Trillium has a big presence there already.
They did.
They did.
Yes, so 2 years ago, so in the changeover, they made some changes in their marketing and they opted to leave the fair. I have not gone back since, but that was just to give a little time and space, so I'm hoping that they'll come back. But I think they had experienced a significant decrease in their marketing budget, and the staffing was shifting, and so it was better just to let them go for a little bit. But so we'll try again.
Yeah,
And I would suspect you have a little leverage with not just them, but with the other healthcare providers. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
yeah, I kind of noticed that their presence with the Ice Cream Social has decreased,
Yeah.
over the last couple of years. So it'd be good to have them back. If we can get them back, even if it was just for that event.
I just want to take the opportunity, since we're in this forum, to also, when we're talking about Food for Lane County and the canned food drive, encourage you guys and the Fair Board and anybody else that may be listening to put this at the top of their list. It's not necessarily about getting people in the fair that day, but I want to see that number go back up. When we first started, we were up closer to the 24,000 pound, and I would challenge everybody to put the word out and see if we can't get back up to that level. So that's one of the personal things I'd like to see happen this year, is get back to close to what we were. So encourage people to bring those canned food items. We'll be looking at some ideas to try to get that information back out, but we're just asking that everybody supports that as we look forward.
promoting food for Lane County is a new thing for me, so.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think people have gotten a little comfortable, it's simple, and they know that they can get in, and those that use it, but I think we need to make sure that we're putting it out there, that it's serving more than just getting in the fair for free. It's actually providing something back to the
I wonder
community.
if that coincided with Deb McGeorge's stepping down from her food.
Not sure.
Okay.
I think, actually, to echo that, is that the highest year we had, I think, was over 27,000 pounds, so I'd like to get back with that.
Well, I'd like to
Let's
go
really
way past
Yeah.
that. But let's start in that direction and see if we can't generate a little bit more interest in that.
Now, when I was at Food for Lane County, we used to do the pancake breakfast. Don't do the pancake breakfast anymore, right?
We haven't done that for some time. There are some logistic issues. We're also serving food, which is one of our main vendors, is the food vendors.
I
They're
would
not a huge supporter of it.
I would not pray for you to go back to the pancake breakfast.
Logistically, there was some issues, but.
So to sum up and sort of where we ended this year, our estimated revenues for this year was 1.39 million, and the estimated expenses was 1.225 million, with an estimated net of 165,317. The reason it's estimated is just based on the fact that the way that the budgeting cycle goes is that our expenses that are happening post 2018 fair go back to it, even though they're for the 2019 fair. So because the fair is right at the beginning of our fiscal year, the expenses, staff costs that are attributed to the 2019 fair end up going towards the 2018 fair. We did estimate that, and so we're hoping that that's kind of pretty close to right on.
And that's the rest of the year staff cost. So if, for instance, our time today when we go back and code it, because we're in the fiscal year, obviously goes back to the 2018 fair. So we've tried to estimate the number of hours that each employee will be working the rest of the year and attribute that cost to that bottom line. Again, it is an estimate until we get a year or two under our belt and have a better sense of what that actual number is. And as you can see, that it is the first year that we, as I mentioned earlier, in 5 years that we didn't increase the net, which, I always want to increase, but I gotta be realistic, that's not always going to happen. I'm still very happy going back to that 2012 timeframe when I believe it was a $20,000 net or so. And we set some goals to get that up a little bit higher, to provide some opportunities to replace some equipment and do some projects. So we're still very proud of where we were at there, and we'll look at opportunities to get that back up.
That's always the balance, because you're a public fair, so you don't want to
Yeah,
Right.
charge too much.
exactly,
Right.
exactly, and we want to be putting something back. So we've been buying, new pens, new animal pens, and things like that each year to try to support replacing some of the old equipment and stuff like that.
Pete?
I was just curious, in the graph here on page 16, with the number of net dollars, net revenue per year, is that money put into some sort of capital investment? Is it rolled over to the next year? Is it possible to add those numbers up and say, well, the net revenue number now is $1 million, and it's in a fund that Sasha gets to take with her upon her retirement? In other words,
Yeah.
what does this mean in terms of reinvesting in, obviously, the bigger the number, the better.
Sure,
And I
sure.
get that, but what I'm trying to figure out is what happens to that money?
Yeah, so unfortunately, the way that it was set up years ago when we moved in and started doing the budget cycle within Lane County is that the fair is just a division or product of a single fund, the same as the events and operations and the other facilities that are going on in our spaces. So it's all part of the 521 fund, which is our operational fund. So it doesn't have a separate sub-fund. The only other fund we have is our capital fund.
So this money basically rolls over into the following fiscal year.
Yeah, so any carryovers that we have, we roll over in our next budget cycle. And we've actually been putting that in reserve. So starting just in the last 2 years is the first time we've ever had a reserve fund. And we're trying to build that reserve fund for,
Buying new pens.
anything that,
Yeah.
exactly.
As you said earlier.
Important
capital
And,
projects.
yeah,
such as
and so we
roads.
have, any other excesses have been going into capital. So for those of you that are aware, you're all aware and been around long enough to know that we, moved the capital fund out of the capital program, in an effort to start our own capital reserve for some projects. And we're up to over $3 million now, I believe, in our capital reserve, so.
Is that separate from 621?
Yeah, it's 522 fund, which is our
Okay.
capital reserve fund. So yeah, so any excesses that we have get rolled either into operational reserves or capital reserves.
And so you have only two funds then?
We only have two funds, yeah.
Additionally, we do look at the overall programming, so Corey and I have looked at the ability to buy Main Stage Entertainment and what their cost is, as well as Grants Entertainment and the other programming, and so we do take a look and sometimes take some of that money and build it into the budget for the next fiscal year.
How's your
So-
capital money invested?
Well, right now, we're working, and that was part of what.
That's a good question.
Yeah, what's coming up here shortly is we have a market analysis that's going out, should be going out this week. We've already got the facility assessment done, so we know what our capital needs are. But what we're interested in finding out is what are the opportunities moving forward for additional shows, events, revenues, renovations of the buildings to attract new things like that. So that is all gonna be coming back. We hope the consultant will give us the market piece back in about 90 to 100 days, and then we can come back to you guys and probably start talking about having some planning sessions of how we're gonna move forward with a short term and a master plan after that. So we'll be looking at a 20-year master plan for renovating and replacing buildings.
Sid?
So question I have,
This-
do you still have are you still engaged with the partnership with Lane Transit District?
We are not, so what was, it wasn't actually a partnership.
Okay.
It was just a payment. So what
Okay.
we've done a couple of different things. We did at one time, we were buying out the entire system for the full week of fair, which was a very expensive proposition. After that, we went to purchasing extended hours to accommodate for that. And that was also proving to be cost prohibitive, and so we ended up discontinuing that. We printed up very, very large signs to put at all the gates with taxi numbers and reminding our guests that the bus doesn't run at the close of fair. We've also increased bike parking, I guess that's the right term, bike racks, and encouraged alternative transportation. So we use our website to get that information out. The first year was, we had a few calls and questions about it, but after that, it seems like attendees have kind of figured that out. So last year, we had more
Have
bikes.
Uber and Lyft available this year.
Yeah, we'll have to add that to the list.
So does LTD not really want to play? Is that part of the issue?
Essentially, it was but we bought their service. They were not a sponsor.
I have approached them on the sponsorship
Yeah.
front and in attempts to make partnerships, and the answer has always been no.
So they're willing to sell us the service, but they don't want to be a partner.
Because I think about Saturdays during football season,
Right.
and it's pretty cheap to ride the bus there and back. It's very
I
well
believe we were paying
organized.
$50,000
$50,000, yeah.
$50,000 to LTV to buy the service.
Yeah, and then when the extended hours were 10,
Yeah.
almost 10
Yeah.
as well.
And so we were having a hard time we couldn't get necessarily the right numbers.
Yeah. That's what I was wondering, was the ride numbers were, did you have a count or any idea what the ride numbers were?
We did
We
on
had some.
when we bought the full system out, that was how we, aside from the cost, but determined to go down to the extended hours. I can't recall what the numbers were at this point, but they were fairly low.
Yeah.
I think it was coming out to something like $10 to $15 per person we were basically paying to allow them to ride the bus. And then when we shifted to the extended hours, the ridership was even lower.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sorry, I can't remember the number.
No, that's all right. And then one last question I have is, so on the entertainment, I actually was pleasantly surprised about Bill Engvall. And that, he hasn't really been a major attraction in probably a decade, but he was part of that blue collar comedy. And so if you've been around a while, then you'll know who he was, obviously. But actually, I was pleasantly surprised that he did as well as he did. Night Ranger, I'm not, because that's an 80s rock band, so of course. And the drummer's a local guy, so.
Yeah. Yeah,
Anyway.
a lot of different fairs have gone that route on occasion to test the waters, and it seems like it's okay every once in a while. You just can't have it every night of
Yeah.
every year.
Well, and so, Bill Engvall had a TV show for a short time. I think you probably all know who played his daughter, who's now a mega gigantic, probably the biggest star on the planet, Jennifer Lawrence. That's where she got her start with on the Bill Engvall show on TBS, probably a decade ago.
And I don't know who Bill Engvall is.
Here's your sign.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I know those. My kids read sometimes, from growing up in Douglas County, so I know those guys.
Pete?
I didn't want this meeting to go by before I personally thanked all of you. I feel like this is a huge amount of work to be on this fair board and kind of oversee the whole thing and ask all the difficult questions and easy questions, but just to show up and be part of it, and I just wanted to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Pat?
I talked to you all at the Fair Board about what I'm going to say next at the meeting last week, but just want to point out that your administrator, your chief of staff, Corey Buller, his work and helping help us to alleviate homelessness, poverty, spend his own time. And you guys, I told you this, but Corey was there with his shirt sleeves rolled up through the weekend helping me establish 99 camp. If you'd see the pictures of the work that was being done out there, and Dan was there also, so you saw all this happening. I just wanted to commend once again in front of the Fair Board, Corey, for the work that you did, helping really address an immediate need and help us moving in the right direction on that immediate need. Thank you so much. I mean, it goes beyond actions, beyond words. You guys, I know you're very, very proud of it, as we all are.
So, Sid?
I just
I-
want to point out that this staff makes this fair board look real good. In my many years, I've worked for all but one fair board manager, and these two are head and shoulders above anything. And you can see by the presentations, the professionalism we have now that we didn't have for a lot of years. But not only professional, but high skill level, what they're doing and how they reach out to their fairs, the measurements they're doing. They're really blessed.
Yeah. Well, the whole profession of events management and event center management has changed over the years and and if you're not professional, you don't survive. And I think we do have some very professional staff that I'm pleased that we have right now. So, but I think they benefit from a stable fair board too. There's, you guys aren't making the newspapers with anything, crazy going on or anything like that. You're supportive. You're coming up with ideas. You guys are there at the fair. When I go, I run into you guys, out on the fairgrounds, walking around. So it's you're involved. You're active in helping them. So don't downplay your role too much.
Well, we have a unique, not completely unique, but somewhat unique setup in that the Fair Board runs the fair, and we're part of Lane County the rest of the time. So, we've got to also say how much we appreciate your guys' support and Public Works and the rest of Lane County. So what we do is not necessarily normal within the county scope a lot of times, but the willingness throughout the organization to be able to look at it from our lens and being able to accommodate sometimes those odd requests is one of the things that makes it work.
Yeah, I know
we appreciate that support.
Yeah, we definitely have to think about HR issues differently for an event, center than we do for staffing a clinic or something like that. So you guys have a strange needs for hours and
Oh, yeah.
bursts of hours for certain things and all that stuff. So it is definitely we appreciate that.
I think the communication's really improved too through the years. And I think by having the county commissioner attend one of our meetings is really beneficial. Mm-hmm. The communication between staff and the board to the county commissioners, that's really, really critical. We keep on doing that, I think, in a way.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, so Jay mentioned this at the beginning, and I know you've commented on it as well, but I think with the loss of these concerts up the freeway, I mean, this could be an incredible opportunity
Yeah.
for the fair.
Yeah.
I remember talking to Roger Nyquist about it, and he said, you know, the first couple of years was really cool, and then it became royal pain in the tail end.
Yeah, right.
He's like going, oh, thank God they're gone.
Right,
You know, No,
exactly.
seriously,
Yeah,
Lynn,
right.
Lynn County, they said, you know,
stress on it.
the stress and services in a little narrow road.
Right, right.
Getting thousands of people down there just was, he said, you know what,
It's a nightmare.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it could be a great opportunity.
Right.
We think so, and, you know, can't throw everything out there the first year to see what hits,
No.
but we have a lot of ideas, and we'll be selectively choosing some of them, see if we can't get some of that interest back. We think it's a good opportunity.
Of course, the Eric Church blind luck year was.
I mean,
Why not?
we're still
You
waiting.
never know, you may get
We're
another
still
one
waiting
one
for
of these
another one
days.
of those.
Yeah, but you know, the whole issue around those music festivals and rural sided festivals like
Right.
that, there's a reason why counties develop fairgrounds. There was a need for infrastructure, a
Right.
need for,
Yeah.
to have the transportation corridors, and a need to be someplace where everybody understood there was going to be that kind of impact.
Right.
And, what we saw, when these things crop up and they become popular, is suddenly they become a problem because they're not where the infrastructures, the neighbors weren't exactly, informed of having this massive event once a year
Yeah.
to impact
Yeah.
their living, and it definitely shows,
And we're thankful in the location that we have, because we are centrally located. We get all those opportunities to get people in those gates, but yet we live in a great neighborhood, so we're part of a great neighborhood association. We have great relationships with our neighbors, and we're very happy about that.
Yeah. Yep, and Commissioner Sorensen, as one of your neighbors, really appreciates the work you've done with the neighborhoods.
I was gonna
imagine.
say, the number of complaints I have received has steadily gone down. So if we were to have the numbers in front of us for this graph, it would be like that. So that's a real compliment to how well the neighborhood is being treated.
Yeah. Well, I think that part of that's been the work of the Fair Board over the years, where the focus was on becoming a family-friendly event, whereas for a while it got to be just a kind of wild, what can we do to have a wild party?
Right.
And it got a little out of hand, and,
Yeah.
folks parking in the neighborhoods, and the other issues that were happening there, and some of the behaviors that were not really conducive of being, in the middle of a neighborhood. And I think the Fair Board made a huge effort around that over the years, and bringing the family-friendly entertainment that's free. Everything you guys have done to make it easy for a family to show up and be entertained has really been one of the big changes in why the neighborhood doesn't complain. When it's families showing up and the behaviors are mild, people don't complain.
And that's in no small part the customer service staff, the temporary staff that are there. It used to be that you couldn't tell what kind of service you were going to get, if any. And now, across the board, the people who are working in the games, the people who are working in the booths, are really outgoing, friendly,
Oh, yeah.
and not deterrent. I mean, you don't mind watching your grandkids walk up and play a game. Whereas
Right.
it's not always been that way.
Right.
Yeah, you guys have just done a great job. Really pleased that, I know the numbers were down a little bit. We can't, necessarily pick, the weather for that weekend, and we can't necessarily know what act is going to be the hot act and all that. But overall, I think the steady climb in average revenues and everything else, you guys are doing a great job. I'm really pleased as I walk around the fair. I purposely, when I come for the social, or at some point, I'll just walk the midway for a while and just walk circles around and go through the animal buildings and all that, just kind of get a sense of how the rest of the world might be seeing the fair. Kind of step away and just kind of look at it and say, if I was a family, or if I was this, how would I be looking at this? And
Jay, we know you're after the teddy bear.
yeah. Yeah. No, actually, usually what I can guarantee, the last couple of years, I get my Carolina barbecue sandwich because I miss my Eastern Carolina barbecue. And I have to get, an elephant ear from that one particular booth that's been there forever, the church runs. I can't remember what
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And so those are my guaranteed 2 purchases at the fair every time I go. So I really appreciate you guys. Anything else you guys need to add today?
Nope.
Anything from the board?
Questions?
Well, if there's no further.
Sasha's got her hand
Oh,
up.
Sasha, there you go.
So
Sorry.
I want to remind you that this is my last meeting of the year, of my terms, all of that, and it has been amazing. It's, of all the boards I've sat on, this has always been my favorite. That being said, I want to encourage you to reach out to your residents. So there's an empty seat, right? And an empty seat hurts, as you know. That person does not necessarily have to have grown up in 4-H. I am a big city girl. I grew up in San Diego, and I love the fair beyond all. And so for me, the fair is about community, and I learned a lot, and it was kind of a steep learning curve. But if you give that message out to your residents, encourage them to apply. It is so much fun. The relationships I have made are so rewarding, and I love going through the fair. It's never going to get old. I am at a point where I can't ride the rides anymore. I'm not even going to pretend. You know, like I used to bungee jump, and now I'm like, oh no, you go on the roller coaster. That's all for you. But it is fun, and to hook into your community and really be a part of it is the most rewarding part by far. So just please sell that message. Please remind them you don't have to have been an ag girl or boy to really make a difference and really love it and bring something of your own to it.
I have done that, and a Bethel school board member has applied. So.
Excellent. Oh, yes.
Good. Excellent. So is there any other business from the board this morning on this particular item? If not, I will recess the board because we are going to reconvene at the jail for our annual tour at 11:15. So if there's no other business for the Board of Commissioners, I'm going to put us in recess till 11:15.
And just point as an inspection, not a suit.
Yeah, inspection, sorry. And Jack?
Yeah, I adjourned the fair board meeting.
Thank you very much,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the great
Punch the
report.
button there.
That was wonderful.